Jonathan Carroll is a certified professional co-active coach. And even though he has extensive experience in the business world, he has also led hundreds of people on the transformational journeys through the wilderness and is best known for his generous, vibrant spirit, which I can attest to. He is the founder of Tidal Transformation and the Dragonfly Club for Leaders Transforming Leaders, and we'll hear all about those in a bit. So, welcome, Jonathan.
Thank
And
you.
you're here today to talk about the power of being witnessed. So, first and foremost, tell me, what are you talking about? The power of being witnessed.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. The power of being witnessed. So this has been a huge piece of my professional career in the last year and a half, and a large portion of it came to me probably through a series of small aha moments, but then in one larger epiphany with an animal psychedelic medicine experience that I had. And what I came to understand was that there's a lot of my frame of reference at the time was observing other coaches and healers and people who sell in the online social media space, and that there's a lot of people who are less than present or visible is maybe what I was noticing. And I thought, these are people that are here with incredible gifts that want to serve in ways that help humankind. And I feel it's a tragedy that many of them are getting looked over or passed up because they're not visible to their audiences or potential audiences. And so that was one thing I was playing with. And then simultaneous to that, I was also going through my own massive self-development, awakening journey for the last many years. And some of that was me stepping out into the light, allowing myself to be seen and witnessed, and to stand in my leadership as somebody who had gifts to offer as well. And I thought that there's this great amount of courage that's required in order to do that, for someone to really stand out and celebrate themselves, for others to celebrate them too. And there's also a nuance to that around looking or appearing cocky, right, versus confident, and then source energy versus ego, right? And there's a lot of dynamics at play. And I thought, I really want to create a safe place for people to come together and just spill out and allow themselves to be authentic and not posturing and not comparing themselves to others, and just acknowledging this is where I am right now on my journey. And for others to see themselves in that, either at some place they were on that same part of their journey, or they're hoping to get to that part of the journey at some point, because we're all on some spectrum, we'll say. And there's also unique instances for everybody. So I really felt like there was this opportunity to bring people together in a professional environment, largely coaches, healers, and other online heart-centered entrepreneurs, to just witness each other. And that was the beginning, the inception, the birth of the Dragonfly Club, which is now, almost a year and a half old. And it continues to kind of develop into this blossoming community of people that are showing up to share their gifts and be witnessed. And so being witnessed is really just allowing yourself to be seen in your truth, shining your authenticity, and speaking, from inside. Who are you? Where are you at in your journey, without having to pretend or compare or be something that you're not. And I can speak for myself, and I suspect there are many people that grew up in families or environments where the people, their caregivers, didn't have the tools to fully witness them and celebrate them for their uniqueness. And so I think there's no time like the present to introduce that into people's lives and see what happens, because I do have a philosophy that if we are all like living organisms, like bacteria in a petri dish, then a petri dish that is um, filled with love and acceptance is going to create the optimal results for a human to grow in. And so that's what the
Yeah.
Dragon Club has become.
I love it. And I love I think it's really important to, talk about, the posturing versus the authentic self, and the difference between confidence and cockiness. One is the embracing of one's gifts and I'm okay, you're okay kind of mentality. And then the other one is like the fake it till you make it kind of thing, which
Mhm.
there seems to be a time and place for that, but it's not always the time or always the place. I'm not sure. There's some kind of nuance to it. But, you know, like I know I have had like, times where I've kind of like hidden away and didn't realize I was hiding, right? That was just an aspect of myself that I got to learn and understand. Um and, then you get to dig into, well, why am I hiding? What caused this? How do I, if I'm hiding, how do I not hide anymore? And then there's a whole other level onto that, for people that just aren't being seen, that they're putting themselves out there, but maybe they're just not able to access, the words to promote themselves, or their audience is limited and already been tapped, So there's a whole lot to that. Do you want to dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that we can differentiate between the mechanics of being seen, right? Like how many followers do you have and how many networks are you on, et cetera. But really just the energy behind allowing yourself to come out and fully bloom, like
Yeah.
that notion of, I really subscribe to the idea that just like a seed, like a flower, we'll say, right, has everything that it needs inside of it to germinate and then turn into a seedling and then continue absorbing nutrients and reaching for the light to become its fullest expression, which is the absolute most beautiful flower.
Mhm.
And part of that is uh, accepting that your only your only mission is to bloom fully in your lifetime, to be the most integrated, actualized,
Mm.
ascended version of self that you can possibly reach inside of one lifetime, right? With all the effort and the access to nourishment, we'll call it. And that you are not being asked to compare yourself to the flower next to you. They're doing just fine, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where I think we've had this programming as we grow up that sometimes has us looking to make sure we're neck and neck and we're not
Mhm.
too far ahead because that could get you too much attention, and that we aren't better than, right?
Mhm.
That's where the fear of
Yeah.
cockiness even comes from. And so that'll get shot down like, oh, you're a little overconfident there. And so, but really the flower isn't confident or unconfident. It's just reaching for the light and doing what flowers do. And I think we
Yeah.
forget that we get to do that too.
Oh, yeah. That's a really important message. Thank you for sharing that because they don't care. Like they don't care what the other flower is doing. They don't, yeah, they just don't care. They just grow. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they tend to be their best when the conditions are optimal, but they
Mhm.
don't stop trying, right? There's
Yeah.
no giving up for the flower. There's just, this is what I'm supposed to do, and so I will do it to the best of my abilities with all of the resources I have around me. Whereas I think we sometimes curb our progress to make sure that we're not too far out in front, or that we're not even potentially afraid of our own success or shining bright.
Yeah.
Like, uh-oh. So, and that's that. If we go a layer or multiple layers deeper, that has a lot to do with healing. That has a lot to
Mhm.
do with the journey to acceptance, self-love, and allowing yourself to be the most incredible version of yourself for others to witness too. And so in the experiences that I'm curating for people, I'm making it very clear that love is our number one rule. We are here to appreciate, love, and witness these people for exactly where they're at on their journey, and know that there is no right or wrong. There's just what is, what's the truth.
Which is super challenging because we've grown up in these cultures of I'm right, you're wrong, enemy, enemy, and how do we like that's a lot of breaking down of these cultural conditionings, and it's totally possible. Like it's totally possible. I don't want to make it seem negative because it's not. A beautiful unfolding process when we learn that hey, just because your truth is seemingly opposite of my truth doesn't mean that that paradox can't exist. Like your truth coexists the same time as my truth. And that doesn't make one of us wrong, you know. Um, it's interesting your power of being witnessed. It seems like there's a movement of people, myself included, that are drawn to creating these circles. And in my vision of the circle, is, back to, our tribal days and such when, someone's got an issue with someone else. They don't just say, well, you're wrong and kick them out of the community. They bring them into the circle and the community holds them in love with the power of witnessing while they work it out, because it was a detriment to our existence, our survival as a species to be out of the circle. So we had to work it out. And nowadays we've gotten really far from that. And it seems like there's a number of us calling us back into that, because we are stronger together and we do need your solutions and my solutions and their solutions. And, so I think that there is an incredible amount of power to being witnessed, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're speaking to the new Dragonfly Club, the Seeker Society group, which is it's amazing just to see how much sharing is taking place in there in only inside of 5 days, I think is all. And I know I can sense, my intuition's telling me there's other people just waiting on the sidelines wondering like, what's this whole thing about? What do I do?
Yeah.
Introduce myself or
Yeah.
what? I don't get it. And I think that's fine, right? We're really warming people up to the idea that it's really okay to just be you, and that whatever you want to share, whoever you are in the world today, is totally fine. It's beautiful, right? And that um, you don't have to have a big story or a big photograph or something that makes you relevant to share your story. Your story on its own, you on your own, are perfect, right? And so now
Yeah.
we're just getting into that place where we're rubbing off on each other. We're also creating some group culture in there where it's okay to just be you. And that I think will start to call some people out into the light a little bit more as well, and create this culture of it's okay for me to be witnessed.
Do you think that, I'm just curious of your opinion on this. Do you think that it's almost necessary for other people to reinforce, hey, it's okay for you to be you, in order for us to feel okay being us? Like, do you think that helps
Uh,
facilitate that?
I think it's a yes and. Anyone who's doing their very deep inner work knows that it starts internally, right, with your
Yeah.
own self love and self acceptance. But what I've experienced, and I'm sure many will attest to as well, there's probably similar threads of this, is that on your journey to the awakening, right, of becoming more actualized, more like your original vibration, that you're going to lose some people along the way, that you will fall out of vibration or out of sync with some people that have been in your life till now. And if we do a good job of not assigning a story to that, literally it's
Mhm.
just vibration, right? It's just a change. And so there will be a reshuffle at times where people leave your life, and come into it, and you're just really making space for more alignment. But having said that, I think that people will appreciate that as we call in those people that are more in our new alignment as we're doing our work. It's really nice to have people acknowledge us and appreciate the path or the journey we've been on. And so
Mhm.
that's why I think it's a yes and. It starts in here, right? As within, so without. And also wherever we have reinforcement from our tribe, our community, that feels good on our human, like we want to
Yeah.
belong. So I think
Yeah.
it's both, that we shouldn't rely only on external validation. We should seek the power of our own inner strength and our inner voice. But how nice when you can show up in a community where that does exist and you are accepted for who you are when you already have a strong inner strength. It's beautiful.
I know one of the most healing experiences that I've had, in some kind of way that I'm still working out how to define it, was when a group of people stood around me and would come to me one by one and mirror in me the greatness that they saw in me.
Mm.
Because it was really easy for me to own my shit. Like I can write it all down for you. You want to know my stuff? Like I can write it all down. But and I know some good things about myself, and I know a lot more good things about myself that I can take ownership of. However, at that moment in time, having those people just call to those things that they saw in me was tremendously powerful because I trusted and respected them. I knew they weren't fools. I knew they weren't just blowing smoke. They were honest and direct, and they would just say it. And because of that, I had to listen. And because of that, I had to know that that's true. If they're saying it to me, then it's true. And well, then what? Then what's that mean? Well, it means that I'm all these things too, aside from, my story of, nonsense and hardship and what have you, and it was like it allowed me to be okay being in my greatness, which doesn't seem like it's a hard thing to do, but it actually is because I think that's what we're actually talking about when we're those flowers reaching for the light and in that growth, we're holding that space for ourselves to be in that greatness and that authentic self. And so we can't have all of one side and not the other or vice versa. It's like holding space for the shadow and the light together. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think there's always the duality of in so many things, right? Pretty much everything, right, has its dark and its light side, and so yeah, the amalgamation or the meeting point of both of those is, I think,
Yeah,
pretty special.
this is what Scorpio energy is. The dark and the light, bringing it together, like, woo, we got some sacred marriage going on here of all that.
Amazing.
So, with the Dragonfly Club community that you founded, first of all, your purpose and intention, you kind of touched on that, to hold space for people to grow. Like, what have you noticed since then in those people with being witnessed through the power of being witnessed in that group?
That's a fantastic question. The other thing that's happening inside of these experiences, these cohorts, if you will, is that while we're witnessing others, we're also crowdsourcing ideas about what we see as strengths
Mm,
in our community members, what we want more of, like amplify that, and also maybe blind spots that
yeah.
maybe either not showing up or blind spots that are showing up that could be transmuted into some other behavior or opinion or belief system, etc. So we're getting people who we know, like, and trust to see us, to see the real us, because that's what
Hmm.
we're letting out into the container. And in some ways, sometimes it's very messy. And so my job is to hold the space of someone who's spilling out and hold the boundaries of that to make it feel okay.
Yeah.
And to role model that this is normal, right? Like I borrow a lot from my own medicine ceremonies, and
Hmm.
so sometimes it gets real messy before you put back the parts and clean things up a little bit. So I'm really holding space for that to take place. And so the crowdsourcing ends up being this massive benefit where you're having other people now that really like and get a sense of like the real version of you. And then they're saying more of this. We see that
Yeah.
sometimes. We want more of that. And then there's also like not enough of this, like I think you
Hmm.
could easily turn a corner and be a little bit more sassy or sexy or aggressive, or like whatever parts of us we shut down, our shadow sides,
Hmm.
that gets to be called out into the light too, so we can understand it better, and people with loving eyes and the gift of voice can share with us how that might benefit us. So I see that happening too. What the end results end up being are people who are way more comfortable in their skin, oftentimes pivot in their businesses and take on something slightly new or very new that they've been dying to let out of the bag, so to speak. An
Hmm.
example that I've seen multiple times now is people weaving spirituality into their coaching business or their consulting business. And then they want to
Hmm.
take spirit and infuse it into the work they do, which ends up only amplifying it for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants more of like, give me the oomph that's in your work. And when we involve and invite spirit in, that's what happens. So I'm seeing that happen a significant amount of in the people who go through the Dragonfly Club 12-week experience. Just being a part of the Dragonfly Club, I'm seeing people collaborate, make new friends, even deepen those friendships. And then sometimes I'm even seeing people hiring within the club to their next, mentor for a variety of
Yeah.
different reasons. And
Yeah.
to get out of this sense that like there's anyone at the top, right? I'm
Hmm.
I'm very clear with people that I'm not the guru here. I'm just a person who founded this space for us to all um, commune together.
Yeah.
But I'm not bigger than, better than. I'm not the guru here. So I'm just as appreciative of people who want to hire me for services, but I'm also looking at other people and go, oh my God, you'd be a great fit. So
Right.
that I love. And then really seeing people's business uptick as a result of standing in their power. That's really the ultimate essence for me, is that whether you're selling online or not, but you have this sense of like, this was a piece of me that I wasn't integrating, I wasn't allowing to actualize or see the light of day. And then you let it out with the confidence that it's here. This is me. This is who I am.
Hmm.
And I have this gift to share with you as well. That calls in people that are ready for it, for that gift. And so I don't sell that experience as a business mastermind. It's very different than anything you would see in the online space for a business mastermind. But the process of letting go or releasing or unprogramming ourselves from all the things that are not us or crap we've been told about how to run a business, and
Yeah.
then taking back what we feel is authentically us and how we want to operate as a human in the world, business or otherwise, that just
Hmm.
helps people immensely. They just
Yeah.
they have new energy for the work that they do.
I think that there's just such a power in a community that knows how to community, right? Like they know how to love, or they do their very best. They know how to support, or they do their very best, and they're open to learning. And that being witnessed in our greatness, but also like, oh, I just want to tell you that you have a little bit of spinach on your tooth. Like you might want to, like
Yeah.
because it's real. Because sometimes we walk around with this unconscious spinach in our teeth, and it's okay to have someone point that out to us. We can be sensitive Sallies about it, but honestly. And I would rather have someone tell me than for me to continue in that unconsciousness, right? And as much as I don't like to hear it sometimes. But there's such a tremendous power in this like radical acceptance and this radical love, because I think that that's what you're talking about in the terms of the community you've created. Radical acceptance, radical love. No one's greater than, better than. We're all just humans being human together and supporting each other to the best of our ability. And that's exactly what I talk about on a daily basis and and just absolutely believe in. I'm actually speaking about it Sunday.
Woo!
Because yeah, I know, right? Because like there are certain key elements to having something be functional and healthy and beautiful and transformative, like what you've created, right? You have to have the heart-centeredness. You have to have integrity. You have to have some spirituality to it, right? Some spiritual anchoring, some practice put into practice. And this next level, not just for word sake, but this next level um diversity and inclusiveness. Like, I'm certain that you wouldn't like keep someone who's opposite politically from joining, that they're a part of it too, and someone who's a different color, a different ability, they're all able to join too. It's because we need all of those solutions that again, it goes back to that, dichotomy of like, or the, being okay with like the opposites, because we've got multifaceted issues in this world and we need multifaceted solutions. And for that, we need every single one of us.
Most agreed. Yeah. I think of it like a gigantic puzzle, the universe that we are each a unique piece of that puzzle. And without one, we're missing a perspective, we're missing a gift, we're missing something that takes us to the
Mm.
ultimate cohesiveness, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too often we get caught up with like bad behaviors, right? But behaviors aren't that an innate person. It's not who they are. This is, behaviors are different from who a person is. And I see this with couples and stuff all the time. Like, someone becomes lazy because they don't do a specific set of behaviors, but they're not in their core lazy, So it's just interesting, like delineate, like separating these ideas of a person is not their behavior. And if someone has particularly toxic bad behavior, that behavior is not accepted, but the person can be. We may or may
Mm.
not be able to be around them, right? Because of the behavior that may or may not be safe for us. But I like to always like put that out there, like just because someone has bad behavior does not mean that's innate to them. There's no one on this planet that's born bad. So I heard this saying once that community care always involves self-care, because the community wants you to take care of yourself, that wants you to nourish, it supports you in nourishing yourself. It gives tools and offers that, self-care capability. But self-care doesn't always involve community care. So, we can be isolated and trying our best, but if the well is empty, throwing a couple of glasses of water in it a couple times a day isn't going to fill it. But our circle of people, our community, throwing multiple glasses of water in it will. So, to me, that reflects the power of being witnessed, the power of the circle, the power of that community. And, to me, when people are in a group such as the Dragonfly Club or something else, um, when we're entrepreneurs, we tend to struggle on our own. And having that support of the community and having our greatness reflected on us, having the mirror held up for the spinach in the teeth and all those things, like, that can be so helpful and powerful, and like you said, sometimes, like, redirective when we get off course, or when we are charting a new course, supportive. So, I think I just wanted to give some credit to this community that you've created in the sense that, it helps entrepreneurs take care of themselves, take care of their business and in their growth process. And I just wanted to open up the conversation around that.
I I think you're right. I mean, it's very difficult to be focused on your community when you are needing something, right? And we've got this feeling like all I need is X. We tend to go, um, focal point becomes I, right? I
Mhm.
need, I want, this is what I'm going to require to get through this. Whereas the community can pick up on like, oh, man down, woman down, like we need
Mhm.
support over here, and we might have the bandwidth collectively to, as you say, pour glasses of water into that well, and help someone who's in a compromised situation, we'll say. Um, Whereas the when we've filled up again, we tend to be better community members, right? We're
Mm.
more likely to be focused on how we can be helping serve. So I think that's actually something, I don't think of as much around the Dragonfly Club, but it's clearly an inherent value there, which is we are always looking out for everybody and making sure that
Mhm.
people are good. I do want to distinguish, though, that in the 12-week program, uh, there's there's a kind of a pedagogy, a graduation of experiences that help us spill out and then help us put back what's ours. And
Mm.
the spilling out process can be messy by design. I'm not crazy. I just know what it takes for people
Well,
to assess
deconstruction is
where they're
messy.
at and what they need in life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Deconstruction is just
Deconstruction is
innately
messy, yes.
messy. Yeah.
And it's how we, yeah, and it's when we hear, that's where the light gets let in, right? When we crack the seed open and we let the light in. So we're going to crack things open and we're going to let them spill out and we're going to expose them to the light, etc. So I remember one of the dragonflies who was on our last call. Actually, we have another group called the Universe. That's our year-long container.
Hmm.
And on that call, someone was saying, like, I remember when you guys, when I was spilling out and I was so messy and nobody tried to fix me. We just held space
Mhm.
for that. And that's something
Yeah.
I want to distinguish between that people have what they need typically in order to like fill the well back up.
Mhm.
But sometimes it takes some time, and sometimes we need to hold some space for them to collect themselves enough that they can begin to, or even accept the water that's around them,
Mhm.
And so we don't try to fix anything. We don't tell anybody that they should be here or there. They're exactly where they're at, and that's beautiful. That's part of their journey. But we do hold a lot of space for people to be where they're at and to make it okay. Because
Yeah.
as you say, that can be deconstruction can be messy, and that's also fine. We see destruction and messiness in nature,
Mhm.
chaos in nature, and but it also has its own divine order, which I think is we need to accept that that's also part of the divine path, is that things will get messy at times and confusing, and we may not even know how to narrate or describe what's going on, but that's okay.
Yeah. It's that being with process that just packs so much energy, right? That no matter what happens, I can be with it. I can be with my pain and heartache. I can be with this great good thing that's building in my life. I can be with all of that. And let me not create a narrative around it, but just be present to it. Because the narrative is the danger part, right? That's where we get into trouble, is when we make those stories. But, you know, the deconstruction, it's gonna it can be incredibly messy, but at the same time, that doesn't mean anything. It is necessary. It's like, you can use any metaphor here, phoenix, death, rebirth, whatever, it but, I love that you used the seed, because there are some seeds that have to go through intense mutilation in order for them to break open in nature. And, you know, um, so that was a lovely visualization there for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heat, pressure,
Mhm.
splitting, letting the
Mhm.
insides out. There's all kinds of cool stuff that come with the seed. But then its ultimate, actualization is the flower or the tree that is,
Mhm.
regal, gigantic, or brilliant in color. And to me, that's perfect that it came from a seed that looked altogether, sort of basic.
Yeah, yeah. And the whole fixing thing, like, that's something I just had a conversation about. I think we rush to fix. I think that that's become a bit of a default because we get uncomfortable in these strong emotions and we're not supposed to have them, right? And we're not supposed to feel bad. We're only supposed to feel good and we're neutral at the very least. So let me rush in and try and fix this to make it better for you because your strong feelings make me feel uncomfortable and, whatever. But when we can just drop that aside, because that actually doesn't help anyone. Um, you know, First of all, no one can receive it unless they're open to receiving it. And for that, you have to have that consent. Hey, would you like some feedback on this? Otherwise, like the real power is in that being in being present. I had a client whose wife, he said, "Oh, she was just really going off and I don't really know what was wrong with her. I didn't really know what to do." And I so I said, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "Well, I just sat next to her and I just put my hand on her knee." And I go, "You just hit the jackpot right there. You just did exactly what the best case scenario would look like." Because, of course I talked him through like how did she respond and all that stuff, but she didn't need him to like corral her emotions. She didn't need him to, ask a ton of questions or wrap his arms around her. Or she just needed to know that she was okay and that he was there. And then afterwards they could talk or not talk about it, depending on what she
Hmm.
needed.
Yeah. So good. I love that. Yeah. There's the, what's the expression? The only way out is through. And
Mhm.
so, there's a tendency for people to try and fast track out, or around,
Yeah.
right? Like, let me skip this hard part.
Yeah.
And I've found that, over my many years of coaching, my best coaching has come from me helping. Sometimes people need some help or assistance to go through and to
Mhm.
hold space for, this is the direction we're going to go next. Are you ready to go through this? And
Yeah.
then to intentionally, with love and respect and tenderness, go through, address the thing that is here to be looked at or examined under the light,
Yeah.
and to notice that it's typically not as scary as we make it out to be. But by not looking at it, it certainly gets its own scariness because we keep adding more story to it and more
Yeah.
avoidance. So, yeah, really just holding space for people to go through brings them to new levels of understanding and acceptance of self.
Yeah. It's funny when you said, the whole we skirt around it or we try and fast track it. Like, it's somewhat humorous, but not laughing at you, but laughing with you kind of way when people are like, "Oh, this again? I've already dealt with this." And it's like, just
Well,
another layer.
my my thought on that is that you may have dealt with it, but you may not have interrupted the pattern. And so it's back
Mm,
again for the same lesson again.
mhm,
And it
mhm,
could be 2, 3 times, and each time it may look a little different, but my sense of that is it is the very same lesson until you've learned it, which means changed how you behave around that particular signature type event, so to speak.
mhm,
That's exciting, right? When you get to the place where you're like, oh my God, we have these breakthrough moments. Like my pattern has been to do this. And now
mhm.
that I'm aware of it, I'm going to do the hard thing, which is to do the opposite or do something different entirely. And
Yeah.
then you watch how your life changes around that moment. And then you're on to the next lesson, which is not going to be easy either, but at least you surpass that one.
I was able to change a fatal attraction, not a fatal attraction, but like a horrible attraction pattern that I had in guys. I was always getting involved with people that were not emotionally available. And it was like story after story after story. And finally, it just like struck me. Right. And then I was like, well, I'm not going through that again. And I chose different. And sometimes that can be really challenging to do. But but when you're able to do it, you do get out of that rut for sure and possibly can break that habit or pattern for sure. Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
Absolutely.
And sometimes
Exciting.
something comes around because there's a deeper level of understanding to be achieved, you know?
Yeah, maybe a nuance of the same old thing, but maybe you've healed one part of that pattern, and then it's coming up for a new and different version of it for you to heal
Mhm.
that. And yeah, the lessons are nonstop, whether we like it or not.
You know, it's that's something that I imagine sometimes weighs people down. I know that there was like a year and a half of my life where I'm like, God, this is a full-time job. Learning
Just a
about
year and a
myself,
half, Michelle. That's it.
deconstruct. I mean, it was intense deconstruction of thought processes and stuff. And at the same time, like it's been 15 years since then. And I just look at it like, oh, that's what I get to do. And when I'm done living, then I'm done learning.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, tell us more about you know, your philosophies around like, the group and witnessing. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
Uh, I think what I would love for anyone to take from this is that we're making it sound like we need to show up in this particular place, the Dragonfly Club, to be witnessed by a community like this. And we'll talk about how you can come and do that later. But I want to also impress upon everyone how, I'll be careful with the word easy, but how simplistic it is to witness anybody in your life,
Mm,
and the power that that has for the individual who's receiving that. Um, I think about how I'm guilty of this too. So this isn't me just on my soapbox telling people how to change their lives for the better, but I'm acknowledging it for myself too. How often we can find ourselves in a social setting, whether it's with friends or family, and we're having a catch up. And I know for me, it takes me a second sometimes to almost remind myself that I'm across from someone I love dearly, or that I could deepen my relationship with if I was conscious, present to it, phones
yeah.
down, being with that person, asking, questions about their life like you care about the answer. Um, to me, that is just as much witnessing as what we do inside of the Dragonfly Club. But what we're really doing is communicating to people that we care about them,
Mhm.
and uh, and I think that these simple gestures not only strengthen friendships and family ties, they also help to build the web of community around us, right? We're practicing skills that are quickly becoming outdated, right? As we
Mm.
look for quick, sort of aha moments on our social media feed, but then when we're in person, it's almost like this is too organic for me. This is not fast enough, but it's like slow food, slow it down.
Yeah.
Let's have a real conversation with people. And and I know for me, it's come up in over the last, I want to say, year and a half, 2 years, where I've noticed sometimes I'll leave a function and I think to myself, oh, how did I do? I could have been more present with so and so, or I could have had a conversation. I have, my parents are in their late 70s now, and they're both in good health, but I'm beginning to sense that, we are mortal beings. And
Mhm.
how many more of these opportunities do I have to sit across from one of my parents and just ask them a question about their life?
Yeah.
And so we all get to do that. That's something I want to remind people, that how nice it feels when someone genuinely asks you a question about your life, and how easy is it for you, it is for you to do that to somebody else as well.
Yeah.
And so then the energy or the frequency of acceptance and belonging is being spread with every interaction you have, if you just take a moment to witness that person and appreciate them for being different than you. Because if they were the same as you, that the world would not be very interesting. We would just have
Yeah.
one clone walking around called you, right?
And it limits our capabilities as far as creativity and creative solutions.
Yeah.
You know, you really, touched on something that I think is, like, just massively important and creates these little tiny bridges of peace that we don't realize, right? So many times I've heard people who have physical disabilities, or people who are homeless, or people who are old, or people who are overweight, or, all those people, well, people just look past me. They don't even see me. This is what I've heard time and time again. They don't even notice my existence. They pretend like I'm not there. But to stop and pause and breathe and acknowledge, even with a smile or with a hi or a conversation starter, like, it could make a tremendous difference in one person's life. So I'm so glad that you brought this conversation around to that, because we are becoming, I don't know, Canada, but in the US, we're starting to have this, like, disease of loneliness, right? Like, it's becoming what they say is an epidemic of loneliness, and we use, like you said, the fast track of social media to kind of feel like we have a community, and it can be. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's not a fast track for sure. To build a community, you have to have time, attention, intention, you know? And we can't look at social media it's as a band-aid. It's not a band-aid for our desire to be in community. We need real interaction, and maybe that is on social media, but like you said, it's slower and it's intentional.
Yeah. Um, and it's also a skill, right? It's something that we can
Mhm.
acknowledge that we may not be very good at in the beginning if we haven't practiced in some time.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
guilty of showing up to a family dinner or a function and you are on your phone a significant amount of time, not head up and present with the people that are there, then you have some skill practicing to do.
yeah,
Um, and you can borrow simple techniques like asking what questions, right? Because then it's not a yes no answer. You're just asking people to go a little deeper into the answer. And that can really put somebody in a place where they're like, oh, you're like genuinely interested about this. So I
yeah,
think practicing the skill is one thing. Appreciating that, when we go deeper into our spiritual path, we start to see the divinity, the god-like or universe-like source energy in everybody. So then it becomes easier, because I'm staring at a god across from me, right? Like, oh my God, take it. take attention here, Jonathan. This is pretty cool, right? And so I can appreciate the divinity that's in you, the specialness, the uniqueness, that there is only one Michelle Edwards, right? Wow, geez, that's super cool. But we tend to think there's just a mass of humans out in the world, and they're just, it's like this plague of humanity, and we just keep creating more of us. Well, what does Alan Watts talk about when the universe peoples? It's like a tree creates apples. The universe peoples. These are the fruits of the
Mm,
universe. And so we can appreciate the fruits of the universe by meeting all of these individual people and
mhm.
appreciating them for being, not just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean in a drop. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And now I'm thinking about apples and, good
Activating.
stuff. So tell people how they can find you, if they're interested in title transformation or Dragonfly Club. Like, how can they reach you and how can they find you?
Thank you for asking. I suspect that a vast majority of people will have found you in this conversation through Facebook, because that's how I see it most of the time. So all the Facebook users, you can reach out to me, send me a friend request, and/or look up the Dragonfly Club Seekers Society and jump in there. Ask to join that group, and we'll let you in, and you can kind of get a sense of what the energy is like inside of a safe container where we're witnessing each other and making that normal and okay, and celebrating the individuals that are there. And for anyone who's looking for more information about some of the Dragonfly Club programs, you can reach out to me personally. Typically, Messenger's the best. I'm also on Instagram at Johnny Carroll or Title Transformation. And I'm very open to people messaging me. So you can get in touch, and I'll do my best to get back to you at some point after you message me, for sure.
Great. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your heart. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor, Michelle. Thank you so much.